Eternal Threads. There were 3 games that we started playing this year. We started in January, first week, new year. Let's start all games new. Tuesdays, puzzle, pure puzzle, Cosmic Express. Thursday, puzzles with some narrative, not so much level, more of a story, something that you follow a narrative. Eternal Threads. And then something for Fridays, something more distracting. Deliver Us Mars didn't go well because I had a look at the Steam profile of the game and it said it had puzzles. Well, we all know how that went. Then Cosmic Express, I don't have any complaints about the quality of the puzzles. And the same story as with Deliver Us Mars happened with Eternal Threads. I looked at the profile and it said it had puzzles, and it's a choices matter, choose your narrative, affect the story, change the timeline, call it what you want. I expected something different from this game. As a bottom line, I enjoyed fairly the game. I enjoyed fairly. When we started playing, I thought I wasn't going to like it, the same as Deliver Us Mars. I was feeling like, oh my god, where have I put myself into? Because I'm playing 2 games that are not puzzle games, and not just, I don't ask for pure puzzle games, but at least have something to make me think. There wasn't in Deliver Us Mars and there wasn't in Eternal Threads. In the end, after day 2, which was the hardest to bear, and I'll tell you why in a second, the thing improved a little bit more. The heavy playing was gone, and then it picked up and it was more entertaining. So I expected some puzzles because on the Steam profile said it had puzzles. There's none. There's absolute zero. Deliver Us Mars has more puzzles than Eternal Threads, and Eternal Threads is better than Deliver Us Mars. Slightly, well, not slightly. It's a bit better. It's a bit better. At least it has some focus, some endpoint, some end goal. It knows what it wants to be, what it wants to do, and it does that. Could be better, but Deliver Us Mars didn't know what it wanted to be as a game. So because it's the second time that happens, that I think, or I thought that it was a puzzle game and it wasn't, I have to have a look and double check, because I'm sure that I read somewhere that it was a puzzle game, but it's not. So what's going on? Am I wrong? What am I doing wrong? So I just this morning checked for the review. I checked the Steam profile or Steam file or whatever it's called, but it's on Steam, and it tells you the tags related to the game. So when you see a game, you can watch a trailer, you can see screenshots, but seeing screenshots, you not always are sure of how the game is going to be, because it could be screenshots of cinematics, and then how do you play this? This is a movie, this is a video, FMV or CGI animation. How the game is played, or is it a tactics, it's a fighting game, what is it? And then you can watch a trailer. Same happens. You not always know how the game is or what the game is about. And then you look at the tags. I do. I don't know if something people do, but I do, to double or triple check. And then I checked on Steam today for Eternal Threads, because I wanted to know where I was doing wrong. And then I got the list of tags, which I'll read you. And I found out the following. So the tags are these. Choices matter. Good. Eternal Threads is a game of choices matter. You can choose where the story goes. Story rich. Absolutely. It's the only thing it has. It has a story. It doesn't have much of a gameplay, but story rich. Nobody argues that this game is not. Time manipulation. Well, agree. So 3. For now we have 3 that are good. In total there are 20. Let's see how many are true. Multiple endings. Well, that's true. It has multiple endings. It's also single player. Yes, it's not a multiplayer. You play solo. So far 5. Now, investigation. What? Investigation? What do you investigate? There's nothing to investigate. You go to the menu, you choose your event to watch, and you go where the room is, where the event is happening, in the room where it's happening, and then you start watching the animation. You don't investigate anything. You don't have to pick two things apart from each other and put them together. Like, oh, this is because of this and because of that. This is related to the other thing. You don't do that in this game. This is not about investigation. Next, emotional. I'll give you that. It could be emotional because the topics it touches or it tells you about, the story it goes about, some could be emotional. So I'll give you that. Adventure. Absolutely not. This is not an adventure. This is a movie. It's not an adventure. An adventure is when you have your character and you control it and you go from point A to point B. So you have a sense of travel and you change throughout. You change your environment. Also, along the way, you usually can perform action movements like wielding a sword, jumping, climb a wall with a rope. This is an adventure. This game is not an adventure. This game is sitting on your chair, on the couch, and watch. That's all you do. You don't travel. You don't perform actions. This is not an adventure. So, second wrong. We have 8. Out of those 8, 2 are wrong. It's not investigation. It's not an adventure. Next, as atmospheric. I think it's atmospheric. Could be atmospheric. It's a broad term, a broad tag, but okay, I'll give it. I won't argue. Narrative, absolutely. Narrative is synonym of story rich. So narrative, okay. Thriller, what? This is not a thriller. It looks like it's a thriller, and I'll talk about it, in a second. But this is absolutely not a thriller. If you compare this with a movie genre, this game would be a drama, but not a thriller. Thriller is about uncovering something you don't know, you don't expect, or you can't imagine. But that's not what this game is about. This game is about knowing about the backstory of each character and solving the issues between them and their relatives, which are not in the house. That's drama, not thriller. Next is puzzle. This is not puzzle. Next is mystery. There's no mystery. There's no mysteries. Uncovering their past is not a mystery. It's not something extraordinary. It's not about ghosts. It's not about fantasy. It's not about unreal things. Next, exploration. Again, wrong. You don't explore the house. Explore the house. You don't explore the house. A couple of mobile phones and 5 or 6 texts, objects that you can read, a note or a flyer. That's not exploration. Exploration is an open world, kind of Subnautica, Assassin's Creed, or maybe even if you want to stretch the term, some adventure games like Uncharted could be an exploration, but that's very light. Exploration is you have a big world or big environment like Far Cry. That's exploration and stretching the term. Not this game. Time travel, well, that's an excuse. Yes, I'll give you that. Interactive fiction, I'll give you that. Sexual content, absolutely not. People sitting on a bed, that's not sexual content. There's nothing. There are references, maybe, to some sexually transmitted diseases, but it's not about the sex itself. So, again, wrong. Romance, yes, there is romance. Some kind of. Post-apocalyptic, no. And female protagonist, which there are 3 out of 6, so that's good. So in total, 20 terms, 20 tags. Out of those 20 tags, 12 are correct, 8 are wrong. So it's almost half. That clearly there's a problem here. I don't know if it's the user's fault that they tag this game incorrectly, or is Steam's fault for allowing this misleading. I don't know which one is, but this is wrong. This is, of course, I made a mistake with Deliver as Mars. I can make the mistake once, but this is the second time, and also in a row, because I started playing them one after the other. At least this game is not as bad as Deliver as Mars. but the starting wasn't promising. So that's the beginning, what I expected from the game. I expected puzzles. There aren't puzzles in this game. And so I started playing. And okay, one of the first issues that I encountered, but I didn't realize in the beginning because I could only realize when I was past the half of the game. I mean, not the game, the timeline. Maybe I think I played this game in the wrong way, if that can even be a thing. So I believe this game, it's meant to be played as you start watching events and then you choose one. When you get to, there are two types of events. Let me explain. There are two types of events. The circle ones, which are just an event, like you watch a reel or a short video, couple of minutes. And then there are the diamond events, which contain a decision. The decision is that you choose between option 1 or option 2. That's it. That's all your interaction with this game. So there are these two types. And then you start from the beginning and you start watching the events and you see how the story unfolds. And when you get to, you can only watch the circles, but when you get to the diamond ones, you can choose. So you are supposed to choose between 1 or 2, depending at the time, but every time. What I did is choose option 1 always, because option 1 is clearly like the wrong choice and option 2 is the good choice, the right choice. As an example, option 1, hide the truth. Option 2, reveal the truth. It's always 1 is the negative one, option 2 is the positive one. So I found like choosing always option 1 was showing us the original timeline. And when we got to the end of the timeline, we have seen all of the option 1s, which is what happened, what actually happened in the past. And then from there, the story tells you that you have to manipulate the timeline so that you change the outcome. So you need to choose when or how or where you change from 1 to 2, the options 1 to options 2. That's the way I played. And what was the outcome? That we were the first and second day. That's how much it took us to see all of the timeline. We were just sitting here watching people talking. It's like watching a movie. That's what happened, because we weren't choosing. We were choosing, but our choice was always number 1. So we didn't have to think about the decision. We weren't discussing, oh, should she tell her boyfriend that she's pregnant or not? Or what will happen if we choose 1? What will happen if we choose 2? We weren't having this type of conversation. We were always by default choosing option 1 because it's what we believe it happened, what actually happened in the past. So we at the time didn't know if we wanted to change that decision. So we spent 2 days, like around 6 hours, watching this. I can call it a movie because it felt like watching a movie. I don't know if I created the problem or the problem was included in the game and the developers didn't foresee or didn't take measures to avoid players playing this way, because it wasn't engaging. I think that's the best way to put it. It wasn't engaging. It was like watching a movie. You sit on the couch in front of a screen and you spend X amount of time indulging your eyes with moving images. My brain wasn't working. It wasn't active, taking decisions and thinking on outcomes. That didn't happen. So this game didn't deliver what was promised. Not what I was expecting, but what was promising. It was promising engagement with the timeline and changing outcomes and driving this story the way I wanted. So the first impression wasn't really good and I was very disappointed. And then we went past day 2 and then the mood changed, or my way of seeing the game changed, but not much. So I don't know if I played this game incorrectly or the developers didn't foresee that this game could be played this way, but okay. And then we go past the second day, and on day 3 we started then playing for the first time, it felt like we were playing the game, and we were indeed changing one decision to 2 decisions, so changing the outcome, and then we were actually seeing the results of how much we were affecting this timeline. We were seeing the results. If we had played like the developers had intended, that at the same time that you unfold the story, you are taking decisions according to your beliefs or your desires, you will be choosing one and choose alternatively, like however you want. And by the end, you have a version of the story. But because we chose number 1 always, when we were choosing number 2, we were actually indeed seeing how much we were affecting. If you choose 1 and 2 mixed the first time, by the end, I don't think you will have a sense of how much you are changing the story, because it's already changed. Maybe it's a me thing, but I think we played the right way, but it made the game more boring. At the same time, it felt to me like the correct way, because when you review and then you change your decisions, you can measure better how much you are affecting the story, and you have a better sense of if what you are doing it's good or bad. Now, I'll talk about the setting later, so I guess I can show you my biggest complaint about the game. It's that you start, as I said, you start watching these events and you do nothing but watching, and then when it ends, you go for the next, and you have to move to another different room. And within the diamond memories, you can choose between 1 and 2. Before I played the game, I thought you were present as an active character in the house, involved in the story, and this is not the case, unfortunately. You are a witness, and as spectator, you are just watching. You are like a ghost. You are not present. These people that you are watching, they can't see you. So the way you interact as a character within the game is very disengaged from the action, and also as a player in front of a screen, it's not engaging at all, because your actions don't affect the story. The way you interact with the story is by going to a menu and choosing option 1, option 2. It's not like, oh, you change the glass of water from here and you put it there, and then the character doesn't trip, doesn't fall, doesn't go to the hospital. Ripple effect, butterfly effect doesn't happen. That's not how it goes. Probably a better way to translate that into the game is by choosing one of the 2, but you have the option to make a character go to the hospital or not, for example, by having an accident. But instead of choosing a dialogue option, maybe it would be better that you choose 1 or 2, but you see your character perform the action that leads to the consequence. That would be a better way to translate how the character is affecting or it's involved in the action. My biggest complaint about the game is that there are not directly interacting with the events. The character is there like if he was 5,000 kilometers away watching from a CCTV screen. It's the same. The main character, what we control, doesn't need to be in that house. It's not affecting in any way, and it's just choosing from a menu. And this is what this game is about. It's affecting the timeline, which you do. But the way that it's represented, it's not, I don't think it's the worst, but it's not the best. And if you make a game about affecting a timeline, but your character doesn't affect it, that's a problem from the root. I don't have much good to say. It's not a terrible game, it's an okay game, but most of my comments are negative. Things that are wrong, things that they could be better, things that I personally didn't like, and I explain why. Maybe to lighten up the mood, I can tell you my only positive, because spoiler alert, there's only one positive. And the thing that I like the most, but it's not like to have fireworks, is that some situations, once you have seen all the timeline and then you change some of the options, you have different versions of the same situation. Some of them were hilarious. Some versions, like I'm thinking on the moment when Tom, the landlord, is in his room with Miranda and they are about to have sex, but they haven't started. It's nothing explicit. And then someone else comes into the room and interrupts what they are doing. I think there are 3 different types, at least 2, but I think there are 3 in total. They were hilarious. So that's what I like the most. So my only positive is that there are some comical situations that are really comical. And Rachel is the best character by far of all 6, or even including the extras. Rachel for the win. She's hilarious, the best one. So I hope you have enough of positivity with that. Next, negative. It's another problem in the root of the game, because the setting, and when I say setting, I mean 2 things. Setting as a story, the excuse for the story, the plot. The excuse, it's not right. And when I say setting, I also mean the way that the game represents, like the aesthetic, how the environment is represented, if that's a better way to put it. So one by one. The second one first. The game, you look at screenshots and you think this is a horror game or a thriller, which we've been through that. It says in one of the tags thriller, but we already said and we know this game is not a thriller. I understand someone might see a screenshot and think, oh, this looks like a thriller, but it's absolutely not. It's like making a Mario game with the graphics of a Resident Evil. It's still a Mario game. You jump and on top of turtles and you keep jumping until you get to the end. There are no jump scares. It's a Mario game. This game, it's a movie, and it's not a horror or a thriller movie. It's a drama. It looks like a thriller because the environment, they look like a house. The house is in decay. It's the picture, the image is grainy. It's like foggy. It looks too dark. Of course, there's been a fire in the house and there are no lights, but we are playing all the time during the night, which is not necessary. It's all the time raining, which is not necessary. It doesn't affect the story that it's raining. Why it's raining? It's everything, the setting and the situation in which the game happens. It seems to be leading the viewer before you start playing the game. Make you think the game is one thing that it's not. And it's not. So after you play or after you start playing, you realize, why is this mood? Why so sad and bleak? The house is so dark unnecessarily. There are some lights by the drones that you bring with you. Doesn't make the game better to happen during the night or raining, or the house that it was well maintained by Tom. It looked like in ruins. Textures are like the wallpaper it has mold. It doesn't make sense. So why? Either there's something that I don't understand, or it's plain and simple, it's wrong. And the other half of the settings, which I can show as a negative story setting, that's something that it's wrong. I didn't like it at all. The other half of the setting is about the plot, about the story. Why it's wrong? Because you, as a character in the game, you represent someone that comes from the future to fix the timeline. And then when you are in the house, your story as a main character doesn't develop until the end. So between the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you are introduced to the game, to your mission, and then you arrive in the house. And then your story stops. What happens after that is the story about those living in the house, those 6 people living in the house, not your story. Your story doesn't develop at all. And then you solve all of these people's life, you get to the end, and then you have an extra 2 to 5 minute animation or situation where something happens and you are involved in that. thing that brings you from the future or takes you to the past or whatever, but your character is not involved in what happens. So there are two stories: the story of the main character and the story of those 6 people living in the house. This game is about the people living in the house, not about you as a main character. So that thing about time traveling and coming from the future to fix the past and affect something like Back to the Future thing, that's an excuse. This game is not about you. The developers wanted to make a game about some people living in a house, and they invented around this bubble of time manipulation, which is not. It's a decoration. It's not about that, the game. That's why I say the story setting is wrong. One, because of the environment is represented in a way that is misleading, and second, the setting of the story in which you travel through time, that has nothing to do with this game. So double time wrong. And my last negative, it's something that it's not a big deal, but it's a problem for the game, and I wouldn't know how to solve it. And is the fact that when you watch one event, you go to a room within the house, and then you choose, you finish, then you choose your next event to watch, and then you have to walk to another room. And when you finish, you have to walk to another room. And if there are 200 events, you have to walk from room to room every time, up and down. It has 3 floors, this house. Sometimes you have to go from bottom to top or top to bottom or outside, inside 200 times because there are 200 events. And that's a problem because that's not fun. This game is not about that. If you had a little incentive of exploring this house, it would be okay to walk around the house. Imagine you are watching a long movie, 3-hour movie, and you have a lot of chapters, and you want to go to one specific, to go back, because I think this character did something that hinted to something else. I want to see how the actor performed. And then you choose that event and you watch it. Now imagine you want to go to the end of the movie because you want to see how they react to something. And then you leave your controller, your TV remote controller, and then you go around your house, you go to the bedroom, to the bathroom, and come back and then press play. This is what happens with this. It's ridiculous, doesn't make sense. The gameplay in this game, it doesn't make sense. If this game is about making choices, you should be making choices. You shouldn't be walking around the house because there's nothing to watch in the house. It's not an investigation, it's not exploration game. So that's why I think it's not a big deal, because you just go and that's it. And when you get there to the next room, start the animation and all your fears and sorrows go away. But when you do it 200 times, it's tiring and it's boring and it's unnecessary. When you see the game from outside, from afar, for what this game is, it's not necessary. So there you go. With all this said, my final score for Eternal Threads is a restaurant menu out of 10, because this game is about choosing, but it limits your options to 1 or 2, so you can't choose. It gives you the impression that you can control the timeline and you can choose from many possibilities, but this game narrows all of the options to 2, and it lets you know very clearly that option 1 is apparently the wrong one and option 2 is the right one. So you are not really choosing. Your choices are already set for you, and this feels like when you go to a restaurant and you want to choose something special, something that you had in mind, but when you see the menu, your choice, what you wanted to order, is not there, and then you have to 3 choices for entree, 3 choices or even 2 for main course, and 2 for dessert. It's not really you choosing, it's really the restaurant, the cook, or whoever the manager is in charge, choosing in advance for you and limiting your options. So this game really feels like when you go to a restaurant and you are not actually choosing. You are not the one who's choosing. So this is very fitting for this game, and it actually feels exactly like that. You have a range that is already arranged for you in prior to you coming to the game. So there you have it. My final score for Eternal Threads is a restaurant menu out of 10. And with that, let me do this. Eternal Threads, you'll go in our hearts. Goodbye and farewell. Take care. All the best. All the best endings for you.